In Scrum, sprint planning is one of the most vital ceremonies to set your team up for success. Today, we're going to talk about why it's important, why you need to care about it as a Scrum Master, and how it flows so you can help facilitate a great ceremony. Hi guys, welcome back to Project Management 101. It's Dave here. It's great to see you. Thanks to those of you that voted in last week's survey to see which Scrum ceremony we should focus on. We chose sprint planning, so thanks so much for engaging with the channel and helping the community to continue to grow. It really helps us. Make sure you smash that like button if you get some value out of today's video. Before we dive too deep into the sprint planning ceremony, let's talk about what it is first. So last week we covered the sprint backlog, and prior to that we covered the daily stand-up, and we've also covered the Scrum roles, the product owner, the Scrum Master and the development team. Those roles are vital to the sprint planning ceremony. So the ceremony is the team coming together, all three of the Scrum roles, to plan out the next iteration or sprint. As a rule of thumb, and according to the Scrum Guide, depending how long you're sprinting defines how many hours of sprint planning you should do. If you're doing a 1 week sprint, you would do 1 hour of sprint planning. If you're doing a 2 week sprint, you would do 2 hours of sprint planning. And if you're doing a 3 week sprint, which is really the ideal maximum sprint time frame, you would do 3 hours of planning within that cycle. Sprint planning is facilitated by the Scrum Master, but also driven very clearly by the product owner and the development team. They're there to take part. So now we understand what it is and who attends the ceremony. Let's talk about the flow. The Scrum Master facilitates the ceremony in totality. They'll bring in the product owner for relevant sections where the product owner needs to set the vision or kind of describe the items in the backlog to allow the team to understand it, break it down and formulate a plan together. But the Scrum Master facilitates the whole thing, and that's important for you and me because we're a delivery channel and a delivery community. So the flow of sprint planning starts with setting the vision. So that's the product owner to set a great vision for the sprint. What are we aiming to achieve? You might use a technique as a product owner like Simon Sinek's start with why. Why are we doing this? What is it and how? And together as a group we formulate that story, but the product owner tells us what we're aiming to achieve by setting the vision, and it helps us all to understand the work that we're going to focus on for that next sprint cycle. To make sprint planning as easy as possible, it's really important that the Scrum Master helps the team to make sure that we've got a clear definition of done and we're all on the same page when it comes to sizing. So we need to think about relative size estimation. Somebody might think an ant is big versus an elephant. Somebody might think the elephant is the bigger thing. The Scrum Master needs to bring together the team and form a general consensus around what we think the small anchor point is versus the large anchor point. And then as we have a discussion, we're then able to relatively estimate the complexity during sprint planning to formulate a clear view of the plan versus the available capacity. So, having that definition of done, having clarity around the sizing, you can then start to move into the actual planning ceremony. We build from the backlog, starting from the top and working out how far down the backlog we go based on the capacity, breaking out the tickets as we go. We already do backlog refinement. We'll cover that in a separate ceremony lesson. But each of the tickets will have some level of relative priority to each other. So we start at the top, whether it's technical or product focused, and we talk about it as a team and we make a vote about how big we think it is. We might use a tool called planning based poker, which uses the Fibonacci sequence and allows us to score a ticket or the feature or the story with an appropriate size. And then we start to do relative estimation, starting from priority number 1 down to wherever it is we draw the line based on our capacity for the sprint. So that's the exercise that we go through with the development team. And how that shows up is each of the development team members will have a pack of product-based planning cards, so the Fibonacci sequence. And then as we talk through a ticket, that's the product owner's job, to talk through the ticket, describe what it is. The Scrum Master then facilitates, right guys, what size do we think that is? And then we'll play planning poker. We'll literally turn the card over, turn it over. Whoever's the high outlier versus the low outlier needs to explain their thinking and see if they can negotiate with the team, or the team can explain why they thought it was more simple or more complex. And then they come back together, do a fresh round of planning-based poker per ticket, and ultimately try and form a consensus and a clear view of the story points or the sizing, whatever it is, relative to each other, and formulate the sprint plan. Now this should be fun. The team should have a bit of fun, so as a Scrum Master, make sure you're facilitating and adding a little bit of humour, driving a little bit of energy, thinking about being that energy conductor, so you can drive forward that great sprint planning experience and exercise with the Scrum team. Culture is everything within these teams. So, alongside that, and within the ceremony, the Scrum Master needs to work out the available capacity within the squad. So that could be done on days. So I've got 5 team members for 10 days each. We'll remove a bit of time to cover all the Scrum ceremonies, maybe 2 days. So it gives me 8 days of available capacity per each individual. So with that number, you've now got a view of the total available capacity. And there's a rule of thumb that you never plan to the full capacity of the team, because the truth is no plan ever survives battle. And I think using that, you need to pare it back. So if you've got available capacity of 50, for example, 50 days, 5 times 5 people, great. We'll keep it simple and just use that number to make it easy for a maths perspective for me and you. Then you don't want to plan to 50. You want to plan to maybe 40 and have 10 days or story points or whatever you're measuring in. I'll just use days for this video because it's really simple for us to understand and we're all talking the same language. Then holding back that capacity, you allow for any sickness in the team, any unexpected annual leave, like life happens around these things. So having a bit of buffer space, it's easier to pull something extra in if you run out of work to do than it is to overplan and not actually meet your sprint goal and ultimately the shippable increment and the objective that you're aiming for within a sprint. So with that data and with those figures in mind, so thinking about the capacity, you're able to draw the line on the backlog. So even if you've gone through and planned a little bit beyond your capacity, great, you've got some tickets that are sized, understood by the team. They're the first things that you're going to pull from the backlog if you get through the work quicker than you originally anticipated. But drawing the line's really important. So the Scrum Master works with the product owner and the Scrum team. Are we happy where we've drawn the line? Does it give us a shippable increment? Do we want to adjust anything? Or are we happy that this is a plan that we want to commit to? And with that, we then want to think about the sprint goal. So working with the development team and the product owner, we want to align on a unified goal of what we're aiming to achieve based on the tickets that we pulled out and the backlog priority order. So that could be, we're aiming to build that checkout function for our new website. We want to be able to deploy it into the test environment and run a set of automated tests across it. That's a very clear, tangible goal. Great. Whether it's achievable or not, the tickets and the capacity underpin that. We can work with the information we have. Sometimes things happen and plans don't go the way you expect, and that's okay. That's why we focus on the most important pieces of work up front, and then we maximise the opportunity to deliver a working hypothesis, prototype, demo if you like, for a customer and drive something out all the same. The lower priority stuff is sat at the back end of the queue, even in the sprint. Okay, I mentioned the word commit. That's really important in Scrum. And if we think about the Scrum values, which we've not yet covered on the channel, and we will in a future episode, commitment is a really important part of a Scrum team's culture and the team coming together. This isn't a management top-down, we're going to do some things. This is a team bottom-up process where the team are in control of their actual capacity, the focus of work, and have a good amount of autonomy to be able to drive forward what they're aiming to achieve. But within that, we're looking to make commitments to each other, to the sprint goal, to deliver the things that we're saying we're going to deliver, and we're going to honour that as best as possible. And kind of building on psychology, we're all delivery people, right? We're on a delivery channel. Using psychology, the team that are committed are more likely to go, I've got an issue, I've made a commitment, I'm going to see it through, than somebody that's told to do something. And I think it's really important, and that's kind of one of the psychology pieces that underpins Scrum, is building on that. It's building on that. I've made a commitment, I'm more likely to follow through, I feel kind of courageous, I'm going to go after this thing, I'm excited about it. We're building great culture, versus that, you're going to do this, you need to do it by that day, why haven't you done it? That's not good enough. Those cultures are very different. One will drive somebody to kind of drive forward from a motivation factor perspective, the other one won't. I think within that, and that psychology, we build on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation factors. There's a book by The Truth about what really motivates people by an author called Daniel Pink. He's quite well known. If you don't fancy the book, you can find his TED Talk. Here, search it up on YouTube. And it's great because he talks about the differences between external motivators versus internal motivators, and a shared common goal, a clear vision, a clear direction. All the things we're talking about here really help people to come together and feel a sense of togetherness, much more than money or other external factors. And that's really important because those psychology pieces play into Scrum really, really clear. And when you're doing Scrum qualifications or SAFe qualifications, or any other kind of form of agility, DSDM, there's a whole bunch of them. Some of those will touch on Dan Pink's framework around the internal versus external motivation factors. And it's really important because an awful lot of what we are doing in Scrum and working, building teams of people, is all about psychology. So, great. We've got the team to commit. We've got a clear goal. We're super clear on our definition of done. We've got a backlog. We must be done. Not quite. We are done. But everything that we've done in sprint planning now formulates the team's sprint for the next 2 weeks. That includes shaping the Kanban board to allow you to execute your daily stand-up. And don't forget that 1 to 2 days rule, so you can move your tickets through the board and get demonstrable progress, not only of, things through to done and great culture, I'm doing things, it all feels great, versus I'm not going as quickly as I thought I was going to, even though it's a small ticket. Great, we've got issues, we've got blockers, and it allows us to continue to support the team to maximise the flow, to ultimately meet the goal that we've set in sprint planning for the sprint. That's quite an action-packed 2 hours, and it should be full of energy, full of great discussion, and as a Scrum Master, our delivery people, we need to be driving forward the facilitation of this. We need to be keeping an eye on the clock, making sure we've got a clear understanding of how much we need to achieve within those 2 hours, because it can go by very quickly. So you've got to run a tight ship, controlled in a friendly way, building great culture, but just bouncing off of everybody. Reminder, guys, we're going a bit too deep, we need to pull it back, we've still got a bit to get through, and just getting that facilitated so we can kind of cut through the work nice and quickly and protect those 2 hours to keep it super focused and get to the outcome that we've all walked in to dedicate those 2 hours to execute. So there you have it. That's sprint planning. I hope this one's been super useful for any of you guys that are just starting out with Scrum or just wanting to understand what it is. Why don't you drop me a comment? Let me know. Did I miss anything? Is there anything that you do in sprint planning that you want to share with the community? Let's continue to grow that together. I'd love to hear about it. Let me know if there's anything else you want to hear about within Scrum overall, and then on a future lesson I can make sure that you're getting the right detail that's right for you. Make sure you smash that like button if you got some value out of the video, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. Like I said, we're continuing our Scrum series. We've got a few more episodes to do. I'm Dave. Thanks for watching Project Management 101. I can't wait to see each and every one of you next week. From chaos to clarity, take care.